Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. If you to interact with us, you can send questions and comments to the Facebook event page. So hello on Facebook and in YouTube. So as always, the chats are always fun and exciting. Sorry we can't get to all questions, but remember, some of your questions may even end up on the show. And if you can't catch us live, catch the replay or listen to us in your favorite podcasting app. You know me. My name is John Rewark, and I am a past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. Speaking of Virginia, we've got Joe Martinez. How's it going?
Hello!
Hello.
Joe Martinez. Past Master, Manassas Lodge 182, member of lots of other things, and the Masonic Bulldogs trying to get in, so we'll be shortly. But yeah, great to be here and excited for tonight.
Sweet. And last but not least for now, Robert Johnson. How's it going?
Hey, it's going well. I'm just hanging out with my friends on the internets.
Awesome. Because we're coming awful close to 10 years, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
A decade, right?
The question is, will we still be doing this when we have like the ZZ Top beards?
Yeah, right. Well, we have at least an end date in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime in the late 2030s, early 2040s. I hope I'm wrong. Prove me wrong, guys. Prove me wrong. All right. While we're here, let's give a special shout out to the patrons who support the show. You guys are awesome and rock my socks.
We love you.
Patreon.com/the Masonic Roundtable to join our secret chats, our secret little Facebook groups. Get the bonus stuff, which is that not everyone gets to see, so that's fun. And get access to Robert 24/7.
365.
You could have it's scary.
It's not far off.
Yeah, I'll just hop in the Patreon app and give you an update, like, Taco Bell T-9 minutes, or you're gonna be sorry.
You get the live tweets.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's move on. Be able to clear my desk a little bit. Now we get a chance to go to our favorite section of the show, and that is the tarot card of the week.
Tarot card of the week.
That was a Joe special right there.
I'm going to start hating tarot cards. Are you kidding me?
Kill it. I pulled a Jason there. Okay. Let's go into this. The deck I'm using is a Kabbalistic Tarot, and do my random shuffle here.
One of your favorite decks?
It is. It's got a lot of symbology to build in. So tonight, for the concept of tracing boards in the digital age, we're dealing with the High Priestess. So,
damn.
Yeah, tell me all about the High Priestess then, Joe.
Well, yeah, it's my jam. But it's my favorite card because when we made those tarot decks for Esotericon, my daughter was the High Priestess, and RJ
I forgot that.
And I don't. They're all upstairs, the decks. But yeah, that is phenomenal. But yeah, love the card. It is for me, it's the gateway to the mysteries, right? It's intuition and knowing things on the inside, and that secret and sacred knowledge. And it is just screaming with the divine feminine all over the place. Talks about your subconscious. It's just the card for the Mason. So
it really is. What usually has some pillars behind her in other iconographies, the moon, the subconscious, all the mysteries that one likes to carry around.
Oh, there it is!
Yeah, we found it.
Shout out to little baby Martinez. Yeah, that's an awesome card.
You're muted, RJ.
You're on mute there, Spunky.
Jesus, it's like I'm some noob.
You're
I
an
did-
amateur.
I have to. I'm just like I haven't looked at these cards since it's been a minute, and I'm just like, man, we did it. These came out so cool. I'm gonna do it again. Anyway,
Oh, so you know what you need to do, RJ,
what
because those were an Esotericon exclusive,
yeah,
and I'm sure you have a few unopened packs remaining.
I have three other than mine.
Ooh.
So
Yeah, when you think about how we can move those to some new people.
yeah,
All right. Yeah,
I'm down.
let's talk offline. That'd be fun. That'd be a nice little bonus thing because you put a lot of hard work into that. So that was fun.
Indeed.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Enough of tarot card of the week. Let's talk about the mysteries then. Today's topic is tracing boards in the digital age. So we've, over almost a decade of TMR, we have covered a variety of not innovations, but improvements in masonry as things become more online, more visual, and how do we move beyond the way they did it 300 years ago, where they literally were drawing shapes and symbols in the dirt on the tavern floor,
that's
and
right.
then wiping it up with a mop when they're done, to at least to the mid 90s, where you actually have tools like PowerPoint. You can actually show images so people can actually understand the symbol more than just stick figures on the floor.
Can we stop and thank PowerPoint for 30 years of the same damn slides you see in masonry?
It's the same ones.
The same font, the same background, the same color. It's just identical, right? Whoever made them in 1997, they're still there.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of those, what you find is, I don't know. So I used to work in a previous life, did a lot of photography and things, and to offset my costs, worked at a photo lab. And one of the things that I would often do would be to like scan positives, and a lot of times those positives were, people would say, "Hey, I have this picture or this piece of artwork, and I really want to make a negative of it." And so you would think, man, is there like some kind of crazy way to do that? And really, there isn't. You basically put up in a professional way, you throw a picture on a black background, and then you take a picture of the picture, and that becomes the negative. Now, with something else like a piece of artwork, the same can be done. And so many of the slides are like those original slides that
Like the magic lanterns.
Yeah, you're talking about
back in the day.
the yeah, but then everybody in every jurisdiction on earth has that one slide of like the dude doing something, and it's like cockeyed in every single one.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, fix it.
And so what's fascinating about that though is that these pieces of art have been around forever, and I would say, like, aside from tracing them back to perhaps a company, maybe not much is known about those original artists. But here's the kicker, is that there's so many amazing artists out today, and like, dude, hey, Ryan Flynn, make a set of degree slides and sell them.
Oh, yeah. So no joke. I was thinking too that you have not seen, like, when you see like these carpets, these rolled up carpets that have like all the symbols of each degree on one big rolled up carpet. I talked to Juan years ago and said, Juan, these things are way overdue for a nice, like, refreshed, updating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, dude, like, your artwork style would be great, and you could like lay it out the way you want it, add some more symbology behind that, and like, you would be the guy because no one else is selling these carpets of symbols that have been updated in the past 100 years, right?
Yeah.
So like, nobody's selling it. So like, if you were the only one on the market, you know what I mean? Like, you could capture the whole thing. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah. So let me ask you guys, when you guys went through the degrees, the tracing boards that you guys got. Well, first of all, I think maybe we're jumping the gun.
What
board?
is a tracing board, RJ? That's the first question.
Yeah, RJ,
geez
tracing
Louise.
board.
Come on, gun jumper.
Okay, yeah. So our show artwork for this week, if you guys check that out,
It's good.
it was basically imagine charts. Let me just open one up here. Imagine a chart that had all of your Masonic symbols on it, and they had them in such a way that they were kind of laid out in a landscape. And that landscape, you could memorize a lecture and potentially just point to the different elements on the chart. And those images would help it so that you didn't actually forget. You wouldn't forget to mention something. So, for instance, we'll share screen, and I'll share this. So this is direct from the Scottish Rite Northern Jurisdiction's website.
Great.
And it's all about Masonic tracing boards and trestle boards and a history and significance. So here there's some variations of an entered apprentice, a fellow craft, and a master mason tracing board. And you might think that, they go from quite complex to maybe quite simple. But, I mean, there is an immense amount of symbology contained within that third degree one. And, styles and different artists have done some really amazing things. Back in 2019, I was at South Pasadena Masonicon, and Brother Angel Millar did a presentation in which he had shown some very unique tracing boards that came out. But here's a close-up of one that's very common that you would see. And sometimes, you see these very common with a lot of fraternal orders, not just Masonry. You might see Order of the Oddfellows, or some sort of like chivalric order that was popular, sometime after the Civil War. But in this case, now imagine you've got a lecture that you have to give by memory, and now you've got visual aids to help you move through the lecture, and to give the candidate something to focus on other than just words. And this is really kind of interesting because you're looking at what essentially is tying back to the world's oldest language, which is symbols.
Mm-hmm.
And you're teaching them in a two-pronged way, which is visual and audible. So the only thing you're perhaps missing in this instance is kinesthetic, or holding something in your hands.
Right.
But there are lodges out there that build a lot of these elements and hand them to their candidates as they're being explained to them. And the way that these tracing boards are gone through during a degree, when I say gone through, I mean are being described, vary from degree to degree, and these tracing boards vary from degree to degree. And sometimes you don't actually have something like this that rolls out. This is like something, they hang on the wall. Looks like a giant scroll. It's probably like 20 by 30, maybe bigger. And maybe your smaller lodges have, smaller prints of this, but you can find these in almost every lodge in America.
Yeah.
And then you've got kind of what happens, I think, in my time in Masonry. We didn't have tracing boards at my lodge.
We had the because I was raised in Maryland. We had the ones that Chad Kopensky likes to talk about all the time. Who made those? Those are the Shearer.
Yeah.
Shearer's carpets.
Yes,
that's it.
Shearer's that's what we had. Little they look like those old fashioned window blinds that those window curtains that come up and down, and they're on that roller. But that's what we had. But they were there on the wall, like they weren't used as a piece of the lecture or part of the ritual, that kind of thing. Gotcha. They just sat there for people to look at.
Yeah. And then we had none of that during my degrees in Virginia. I mean, it's just, lodge preference. But we did do the PowerPoints at the end of the lectures. right? So those
That's
are put
cool.
together. Yeah. So that actually, I mean, I still remember that today, because it was something visual. I could see it
I
as well as hear the
Mhm.
description.
I remember getting called like right to the foot of the dais in front of the worshipful master. They turned me left, and the dude stood next to me, and then the lights went down, and I heard this click, and it was like, and I was like, "What is that?" And I learned, and then yeah, of course, it was a giant, like an old Kodak clicker projector, like with actual slides, and that's what they used. And
Wow.
we used that dang thing. And I remember having to go on eBay to find a light bulb before it when ours
I
burnt
bet.
out.
I bet.
And then we moved to okay, y'all know everybody like loves LCD TVs. They hang on the wall. And then do you guys remember when you wanted to get a plasma instead, and then you decided you were going to hang it on the wall, and then you were like, maybe I don't want to hang it on the wall because it weighs 3,000 pounds? Yeah, so we got this.
Legit.
We had this thin plasma that we had to mount on the wall that we had to anchor into concrete. Um, and at that point, you would think, oh man, that's pretty cool. Like it had all these HDMI inputs and stuff. You could do anything cool. But what we ended up doing was somebody put those slides on a DVD, and then they had to like press
Whoa.
play and then pause it,
Wow. Like
unpause.
480p resolution.
I was just like,
amazing.
Times
we
New
can
Roman,
just,
baby.
at the time, I'm like, why don't we just hook up an Apple TV to this thing, and then I can just, the sling. What's the Google thing that we used to plug in?
Like the Chromecast or
Chromecast. Yeah,
yeah.
you could plug the Chromecast in, and just with a flick of the finger, slides are on the screen, and you could just swipe through them as you wanted. As you were going through these images. But for me, yeah, we had slides, and each one of those symbols, instead of being on a giant poster carpet or whatever, it was just one at a time. And it was fun. I mean, it was fine. But yeah, hitting on two modes of learning there.
Well, to your point, I mean, go back all the way to before they started having artists do stuff, and I think your article talks about it. And people that talk about tracing boards, they always, where's that name come from? That comes from, when we first met in lodges as speculative masons, we met in taverns, and we met in the upstairs rooms of things, and we would draw the symbols on the floor and trace them out. And whatever degree that was, or whatever meeting that was, or communication that was, you would draw those individual symbols, and then at the end you would wipe them away and wash them away. So, and you'd have to do that every single month. So somebody got the bright idea. Thank you Gutenberg and everybody that came after, to actually make one and print it out.
So what I find fascinating about this, which is why I wanted to talk about this this week, is that unlike certain parts of our rituals, which you can't do digitally or virtually, or some of these things you got to do in person, and we're definitely advocates of keeping that way. What I find fascinating is that we all had different experiences. Just those three anecdotes right there. We all had three different Masonic experiences of the visuals that went along with the ritual. So, we don't have a standardized way, thankfully, of how best to move beyond the words of the ritual, right? We have ritual schools in just about every jurisdiction that want to make sure that the degrees are, word perfect, or as close as possible. Then you might also have in your committee of work, you may have ways to actually do the floor work, and everyone argues over that because that's less standardized even within your own jurisdiction.
Depending on what old person you have in the room that day.
Yeah, exactly. Nope, I remember it differently. Well, thanks, Grandpa. And then, so then you might have some sort of standard for how things are supposed to move around during the degrees. But then beyond that, there's a lot of freedom to experiment, innovate, try things, to encourage bringing the words to life. And so we've talked about, all the way from the OG innovation, which was the magic lantern, right? Do we have a picture of that? I think it would be awesome if we could find a picture of like those magic lanterns. They were PowerPoint like on glass slides in front of a really, really hot
I'm looking.
light,
Yep, I got one.
light source. And I mean, that had to be like game changing back then. Probably we're talking about mid 1800s, late 1800s, maybe.
Yeah, here we go. You ready?
Oh,
Let's see.
I'm sitting
Magic.
down. Yeah.
And
So up until that point, right, it was either drawn on the floor, maybe printed on a carpet, and if your lodge was lucky enough to have the funds to buy one of these things hanging on the wall, great. But now you move up and you get technology in your lodge,
Hot
and you get
technology.
oh, sorry. Stop! It's mine.
it's yours.
Well, and
Look
that
at
one's
that.
candle driven.
Yep, that was a candle-driven one. Mm-hmm.
So these are like glass slides through optics, right? That project that image on the wall.
Yeah, I've got man.
It's a surprise, like masonry didn't fall apart right then and there.
Well, what's so funny about that actually is when those became even more prevalent, and as electricity became a thing, people started actually like soldering in light bulb apparatuses where the candle used to be.
Yep, I got one of those.
And then you get one of those old cloth wrapped AC cords,
Yes.
and
With the frayed edges on the.
mhm. And and those things got so
Oh, look at
GD
that.
hot. Yeah, there you go. Look at that
That
conversion.
is a lodge burning down, just waiting to happen. Right there.
I'm gonna grab some photos, and when I have them here, I'll interrupt and I'll show you guys.
We're up on our insurance policy, right?
Oh,
But
my.
honestly, those things are dangerous, man. But they kept being innovated upon and kept getting better and better, though. Like one that Spencer and Spencer Hammond and I were messing around with, that we have up at our lodge, that we had considered maybe sort of modernizing it, making it safe to use and using it. It actually has this really interesting load device too that this is John's gonna just go nuts. It has a loading device for the glass slides so that there's less time in between the transition. So it's like elimination of waste.
Yeah, transport movement, exactly.
Yeah. So it's super wild. And one of the codes for the Illinois Grand Lodge is that we're forbidden from using a stereopticon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that one of those old timey things where you had like the little box and you held it up and looked at the pictures in 3D?
Which is kind of weird to me because it's like
no 3D.
that's first
lodge.
3D.
Yeah.
I
We
mean,
only work in 2 dimensions in this lodge.
yeah. Multiple worlds surround us, but we're not allowed to see them.
On those like what were they? The old school Viewmasters.
Viewmasters, yes.
Yeah, I think I got one here. Shablam.
Oh, there we go.
That was virtual reality.
Banned,
baby.
Yes.
banned. All right, so again, we're already innovating by this point in history, and it kind of stays the same. You might get them transferred to some print slides, right? But again, I think probably once you got the turn of the century, people realized they could bring PowerPoint into Lodge, digitize some of those, and so I've seen some really good examples where people spent a lot of care and feeding to transfer high quality copies of those, now antique slides, right?
Yep.
Because I mean, if once they're broken, they're not getting replaced, right?
Yeah, there's
So-
actually there's a large market for them. Not only and not so much even when you would think like antique stores or whatever. It's Masons like Alex Powers. It's Masons like these guys who love the history and they go out and they want to salvage these things, but ultimately you get these kind of dudes that are super into the idea of using them again. And I kind of dig that.
Oh, you mean hipsters?
That's right, Masonic hipsters.
Ew. Everything about that sentence sounded awful.
I'm just picturing some Masonic hipster like working at his like day trading company and bringing a magic lantern in to like project his PowerPoint.
Getting off work at 2 in the afternoon. Brought my magic lantern in, guys.
Amazing.
Right. So then the question becomes like, we're now starting to get into more of that online masonry thing. So people are on the message boards. Like we've talked about all this. I know it's scary stuff. Here's
some degrees. There you
getting
go.
on bulletin boards,
Watch a video.
Usenet,
Woo.
right? People are sharing texts and stuff. The World Wide Web is here. People are starting to put things about masonry online, both true and false.
No.
You get some innovations like Castle Island Virtual Lodge, right? Which we've had a couple episodes on that.
Great lodge.
Yep.
Do you remember which platform Castle Island Virtual Lodge used as their first
Second
online?
Life.
That's correct.
Mm.
They used a now shut down platform called Second Life, where you could literally fly into Lodge in a 3D world. So, yeah, I missed that opportunity, but it sounded like it was something else, right? But they tried something, and again they preserved the secrets of Freemasonry, and obviously didn't confer degrees. Kept the secrets, but the administrative and the things that we can talk about, the things that like we're talking about here, those things can be presented in lots of formats, right? So now you fast forward a little bit more. Castle Island is now upgrading their platform to do things that like WebEx, right? So they upgrade to WebEx to actually meet like we're doing now. This is, again, pre-COVID, pre-Zoom, pre-all this stuff, right? The internet's just getting fast enough that it's stable to have a conversation without everyone freezing up and dropping off. And they even continue to iterate post-COVID on different platforms, right? For price and for the Masonic experience.
Well, and they're spreading too, right? They started Australia as a result of what they saw in Canada. They started their own virtual lodge. That's Endeavor Lodge, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And so, and then based off of that experience, right, then we saw a ton of stuff pop up during COVID to fill that gap of Masonic, the Masonic Brotherhood and education, things like refracted light and Superiority and a couple other, platforms, forums, whatever you want to call it, where brothers could just sit and talk and have a good time and meet people from around the world. So this quote unquote fourth wall is getting broken with what we understand Masonry is,
And
which is fascinating.
Like, I want to say it was a couple of years ago, one of the Scottish Rite Valleys did like this super huge overhaul of their stage where they did a sort of virtual or a VR laser projected stage thing.
I know that there was a valley way up north, I believe, that actually just replaced their entire back wall with nothing but LEDs. So they could literally project any backdrop they wanted. And so when you have 32 degrees, you could maybe with multiple scenes, you could have a lot of variety there. Right. Yeah. I mean, so that in itself is a huge visual upgrade from these backdrops that used to be. Now, granted, tons of research papers and beautiful hand-painted backdrops still exist today. If you get a chance to go to a Scottish Rite Valley that still has the original 100-plus-year-old hand-painted backdrops, like, you got to see them. They're just fantastic. They are truly pieces of art that are, sadly getting lost to time. So here we are, right? We're now 2024, and we want to make sure that we continue to preserve the secrets of Freemasonry, but enhance the candidate experience.
Meta.
What? No, I'm not talking about going meta. I'm talking about, I know what you're saying. You're talking like Meta Quest as the
That's right.
virtual reality platform.
Yeah. Especially now. I think what's really interesting is you have I think of it as nothing more than an enhanced version of a tracing board. Like, I honestly don't think there's anything broken about the tradition or anything. I think what's really awesome is this ability to get immersive. And why I think that's important is, whereas before you had mouth to ear and no visuals, then you had drawings in the dirt. Okay. Then we had carpets and posters and symbolry that way, and then we got slides, and we've gone through this gamut here, and now we're at a place where, for instance, you can get a Meta Quest 2. I think they start at like $150 now, and they've got they have an okay like pass through type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you guys who don't know, consider that almost like what we would call augmented reality, which is where things that are digital in nature are projected into the room you're in.
Right.
So if you guys have ever hopped on your phone and gone on a furniture store or even on Amazon, there's a chair or something you like, you could click a button and it'll say, see it in your room. And you can just like look at your phone and it will scan kind of the backdrop and show you what that chair would look like in your room. And you could walk around and the chair like changes perspective and everything, just like if it were really there. Mm-hmm. And so what I find fascinating is, especially like with like MetaQuest 3, which is probably the most affordable, best option out there, I think, right now. Right. Mm-hmm. Unless you go PlayStation, but that's exclusive to PS.
Not something Google, John.
Yeah, well, Google gets in and out real fast with stuff.
Yeah,
like they test the waters and then they just like bye. But the MetaQuest 3 has wonderful pass through now in full color. So now you could imagine, like, yeah, it's really cool. You could bring the pillars out, right? The candidate maybe has to walk through some pillars or something. And then when he goes through, what if the guy who's in control of the MetaQuest or something, like as he walks through it, it triggers something else and he gets to see stairs, winding stairs.
That's literally what we were talking about in the green room. And I was trying to find the example. I'm so sorry I interrupted you. That is not awesome.
It's super exciting. And I'll be honest with you, like, to me, that's exciting. I would love to go back through.
So I was trying to find the right example, and I don't think I gave John the right one, but in the green room, we were talking about that. And I remember when I first got my MetaQuest VR headset, there was a bunch of free free games that you could play, and so we would test them out before we spent money, and my kids obviously wanted me to buy all the things, right? So, but we didn't. But there was one, it was a virtual reality tour of they're not a sponsor, okay? Pause the video.
Sorry to distract you, Jeff.
Any money from them, unless they want to. But no, there was one, it was a VR walkthrough of it was either the inside of the Great Pyramid of Giza or the Valley of the Kings. and it would walk you through, and you'd get there, and you were in like 2020, whenever during lockdown. But as soon as you walked in through the gate, it would start to transform into 3,000 years ago. And so instead of looking all dusty and faded and stuff, it looked all gold and glittery, and you could look around and everything and touch stuff. And I was like, oh, what if you're going to, like you said, going through the door of Solomon's temple, and you get to see all the grandeur inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then coming out in just a few weeks, right? You've got the Apple Vision Pro, which is spec-wise like another generation ahead of MetaQuest 3.
It's really awesome, and like imagine, this is like the next level. Imagine, sticking your hand out and opening a virtual door. That's what this kind of thing does, right? Spatial computing. And that's really awesome. It's super cool. I think my issue with this, we're not going to be able to talk about this without talking about the pros and the cons of this technology. But,
sure.
I love this thing. Mm-hmm. I would buy this in a heartbeat, except for the price point is pretty high.
It's a little high.
It's prohibitive. I mean, I got kids to send to college. I mean,
you buy one per lodge. Okay, then we could do that.
Well, you couldn't, because it's not universal.
Just raise dues.
You every if you wear glasses,
that's a good point.
When you buy the Apple one, okay, your glasses, you have to tell it your prescription, and they worked out a thing, I think, with Carl Zeiss, to provide specialized lenses for you. But the issue is that that way you don't have to wear glasses underneath it. MetaQuest provides a buffer thing so that it's got a spacer for your glasses,
right?
Which that's great for guys like me, because guess what? I don't know if I have the extra $300 to put into the glasses for Apple, and you wouldn't have that for candidates either. Like if your candidates wear glasses, they're out of luck.
Just put their prescription on the application form
and charge them an extra $300.
What's your dictus?
Mm-hmm. But this technology is so exciting. I just feel like, especially for those of us who, we think about like, oh, how cool would it have been to have gone through something back then? Imagine a brother who is wonderful with like this kind of stuff, and imagine they shot a 3D movie that allowed you to sit in lodge with, I don't know, like Masonic history buffs love, like Truman or whatever. Like, could you imagine just like sitting in a lodge with Truman? Or maybe you witness an allegory of one of the degrees in the Scottish Rite as almost like Assassin's Creed. You just walk around and watch the whole thing from all the different angles, and like you're free to walk.
Yes, sitting in lodge with Harry Truman doesn't sound fun, because you'd just be you and a bunch of dudes with Harry Truman, and everybody's nodding off because the
minister said something about dropping an A-bomb. Yeah.
Or I got it right. You've got like the antique lodge experience, right? You're like now back into like the mid 1700s, right? Put these on, like you're above a tavern, right? You hear all the chaos going on downstairs, and then you actually get your lecture given to you by them drawing on the floor of the virtual tavern. We go full circle, baby.
And you walk a little too close to the thing the guy like put on the ground, and he just starts like swearing at you in like colonial speak. Like, oi, get off the mat. You're scuffing the lights.
Yes. But we go full circle to recreate the trestle board on the floor experience.
You know who's going to do it?
But it's in 3D.
It's going to be Alex.
Alex
Powers is. Yep. He's already filming lodges for 3D tours.
He could code it too. That's the best.
Oh
part.
yeah, he's got it.
Well, to that point, yeah. No, another person who was super big into that, I know, especially during COVID, was Sean Iyer. He took the recreation Alexandria Lodge room that's in the GW Memorial, and he did the whole 3D mapping it out and making it an experience kind of thing. So,
Oh wow,
super exciting.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so I think, okay, as cool as it would be fun to like play with toys and all that, like it really could enhance the experience, right? Because we're all about improving Masonic experience, and it's the logical next step when you think about where we are from two-dimensional PowerPoint slides that every jurisdiction is okay with, right? They're just kind of letting it slide.
And what do you think, though? Like, does is there some sort of like administrative thing that could happen, similar to like how Grand Lodge said, "Hey, no stereopticons." There's nothing that's really, I guess, prevents the Masonic slides from, being cast from a computer through an HDMI cable or through a digital
Yeah.
projector today. Do you think that guys would be, like, I guess, okay with this new thing? Or would they say something like, well, we can't see what's going on in there? So since the candidate's the one with the...
Well, to your point, why not? Why couldn't you cast what he's looking at on the TV screen or on the projector too? And yeah, I mean, I think as you were talking about stuff, RJ, all I thought of like was my kids with their mobile devices and just like ARing everything. Like they've got their Pokemon Go app open and everything is. We're at Target and they're doing AR, and I'm like, will you put that down? I'm like, can we just buy our Frosted Flakes and get the hell out of here? We gotta stop and see Charizard, hanging on the shelf with you and making faces. But that's like, for them, it's just part of everyday life, like,
Mm-hmm.
and AR is slowly, to John's point earlier, you've got full blown VR, but you've also got augmented reality, which is at a much lower price point than, full blown buying the $10,000 Apple thing or however much it costs.
Mm-hmm.
That are easy entry points into this kind of stuff. So,
yeah. So I mean, it's certainly something to consider, and I think what lets this PowerPoint thing remain is that it's ubiquitous now, right? That most people can just plug it in and fire it up, right? Most guys, no matter their age, really can just start presenting something. And so as long as it becomes, and that's with any new technology, right? In order for it to be easy enough to pick up and use, which Apple is always good at, right? They always have the user experience nailed down. Then it could become so ubiquitous that it becomes not the friction to get it set up and get started could be reduced.
Yeah, but just as you were saying that, and I think, honestly, I think our opinions are kind of skewed because we're all technologists,
Mm-hmm.
in some regard, and I think I just look at, in general, we look at Freemasonry or American Freemasonry at least, and we see that the adoption rate for the things that society does and what Masonry does, they're never at even keel. You know what I mean? Like I said, we're still using 1990s PowerPoint slides. So, if you want to map us out, we're probably a good 20 years behind everybody else when it comes to adoption rates. And we're only becoming comfortable with the 1997 PowerPoint slides now, or certain lodges are,
So which one is slower to adopt technology? The government or Freemasonry?
Freemasonry.
Wow, that's bad.
Because at least the government's using things like biometrics. Can you imagine, like,
That's true.
walking into a Masonic lodge and you got to put your thumbprint and your eye scan down? Yeah.
All right, you guys, I found these pictures. I'm gonna show you
Nice.
of these images that Spencer and I we finally put the damn thing together. Here you go. So that is the machine. What you're seeing is the back end is a fan. The light source and then you have this giant telescopic device, and at the end is a focal piece that you know, allows it to be projected in focus. You've got a couple different knobs. This whole thing on top, these bars, it's a cage. It's just a heat cage to keep you from touching the damn unit. And if you touch these things, you could cook a steak. Like, it's hot. Um, can you still let's see here. So this is the company who made it, Airflow Stereoopton, for 3 1/4 by 4-inch slides, made in Chicago, Illinois. And then we've got let's see here. Let me show you this. Here's Spencer, and he's
Wow.
projecting it on the wall.
That's awesome. Now, are they upside down and reverse?
No, they come out okay. So
Mhm.
this is what you'd see. This is in the
wow.
daylight. This is before we painted, so don't judge. But I mean, it's just such a wild contraption. You look at this thing and you go, what in the heck? This
Yeah,
is the
so-
feeder.
So is that what makes time travel possible? Is that the flux capacitor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. These are just machines that I don't know. You saw the really kind of neat burlap material that was covering the case that it
Mhm.
actually sits in. The whole thing collapses and it's like one of those old like bar kits that in the
Yeah.
suitcase. It just is super cool.
How much does it weigh?
Probably about 25 pounds.
Not bad.
I do remember when I plugged it in, when I unplugged it, the plastic piece that the prongs stick out of came right off, and the prong stayed in the socket. So I was like, oh boy. And when we fired that thing up, Spencer was like, that's ozone. Like, yeah, man. So you could smell it.
Nice. All right. Well, on that note, let's figure out the question of the day, the final question, and that is, what's after that? Like, what values or benefits will that bring to Freemasonry going forward? The future of visualizing digital tracing boards. And if you have any good guesses on what could come after that, like what's going to be ready by 2040, we'll start with Joe.
So 2040, if we're still meeting in lodges by that time, if not everything is like Castle Island, I think that I think we're probably just starting to be catching on to the technology we're talking about today at 16 years from now. So yeah, that works out well. So we'll start to pick up virtual reality, augmented reality will become part of the process. But I mean,
Nice.
All kidding aside, I think, I'm a big experiential type of Mason, right? Like the important part is to experience it, not just hear the words or the music, unless you're in certain jurisdictions where there is no music. Hear the words, smell the smells, just have a full-blown experience as you're going through the process of initiation. And this can only help, right? If it's done tastefully. And I saw lots of comments like, hey, this wouldn't stand up in TO. It's, well, you could chop the T off that part of the conversation. Just talk about observant Masonry, right? Because some things aren't really traditional. But if we're going to talk about enhancing the initiate experience, these things can only help. So again, if they're done well, if there's production value to them, and we've mentioned people who have very, very high production value, it can be done well and it can be implemented and people will actually be receptive to it. So, I'm a big fan of enhancing the experience. And, if it's done better than a 1997 Comic Sans PowerPoint, then everybody's a winner if we do that. So let's do it.
Comic Sans.
Ariel.
I'm with Joe. I think overwhelmingly the benefits outweigh anything that anybody could say would be a negative. Clan and kin crafted. Yeah, dude, we can, there's actually technology already out there where we can project a brother's face and then use AI to allow him to speak. And then you just record whatever you want him to say. It's pretty rad stuff. So with this though, this adds a third layer for me. I'm thinking about learning, and this adds an additional layer of both experience, which allows more things to stick. When you talk about, for instance, line things like from a line to superficies, from a superficies to a solid, and all of those kinds of things. Just imagine the impact it would have if, as you were saying, that these things are being constructed in real time, 3-dimensional in front of you. This absolutely makes a much more well-informed Mason. Why? Because he's experiencing it, and it's almost like he's utilizing that skill in front of him right now, as opposed to having to realize what this could mean later on down the road after you've listened to the lecture 2, 3, 4, 5, 100 times. So that's really where I think the benefit is. Not only that, but just experientially, it's damn cool. It's awesome. It's fun. It adds to the mystique. And, I would be willing to bet there would be seasoned men who would say, oh, I want to go through that. I want to check that out. And to what Joe, what you were saying about, observant lodges and the tradition and like keeping things chill or whatever, you do have to draw a line and say, where do we want to draw that line in terms of technology? Do you want power or just candles? Do you want just candles? And oh, by the way, there's no Wi-Fi and no cell phones. Do you lock your cell phones
Even
away?
that was an innovation.
All of these things, like where do you want to draw the line? As Joe had alluded to it, I think, observant Masonry in general has kind of given up this idea of traditional observant, right? Because if you want to talk about traditional observant, right, your normie, super basic lodge filled with like HVAC guys, Army and Navy dudes, that's pretty darn traditional. That is the traditional American experience, bar none. So, that's just not a thing, right? But observant, heck yeah. And you could be observant by using tools that I think allow you to be an adopter. John has always been somebody that we've known each other over 10 years now. And John has always been kind of an adopter. He gets into things, freaks out about it, shares it, gets excited, uses it. Yeah. But
want to buy some Bitcoin?
Yeah. Well, hit it, John. Yeah, you got it, man. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I think 100% what you guys said. I think another word to add to the conversation is pedagogy, right? It's a way to improve your learning style, your teaching style, right? Because we're not talking about innovating on the ritual. We're not talking about changing any part of Masonry that's working well. We're just saying that like we're going from the picture on the left all the way to the picture on the right, where everything is enhanced, it becomes experiential, and it's done in good taste, right? We're not here to, draw clowns or whatever else in the degrees. We want to keep the decorum, keep the solemnity of the degree, but give it something to help, the candidate improve their experience in Masonry. And RJ gave a good example. I was thinking one example that would help me is like, how many fellow crafts were there, right, at the building of King Solomon's Temple? I'm like, what? Like, they throw out some numbers. I'm never going to remember that. Like, I'm just getting this fire hose of information. Like, what if I could see, the landscape of that? I could see it being built. I could see, what's going on. That would certainly leave a lasting impression and give me that kickstart. Because another thing that RJ alluded to is, we don't do the best job of helping a brand new Master Mason get started on their Masonic education journey. And we usually default to, well, just go watch the degree a few more times and listen to the ritual a few more times. And unless you have a great mentor that kind of breaks down words for you or explains things in simpler terms. Like, it's going to take a long time to translate that in our modern brains, and some guys will probably drop off because of that. So anything we could do to help enhance that experience, I'm all for it. So yeah, let's bring it on. I think one other thing that came to mind too is like we talked about Second Life. Many platforms, Meta is doing it. I'm sure the Apple Vision Pro will do this as well. And I think just this week that Microsoft Teams announced a new feature where you can collaborate with like 3D avatars. Right? They're all trying to get to this third place, this meeting space where you can still interact with 3D representations of your peers. And again, it's not there yet, but there's a lot of R&D, a lot of research and development invested in this concept of being together while being apart. And so I think there's something that drives us to the social connectivity that we need to have. And so we're gonna keep driving as human beings to try to recreate that experience. And I think, again, the tools that we have today and the tools that we'll have tomorrow will only enhance that experience. So with that, I want to thank you all very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.